Introduction, Location and Boundaries. Africa. Africa is the world's second largest continent, and it boasts of the world's largest desert and the longest river. Africa was often known as the Dark Continent because of little knowledge of the region. The continent remained unexplored for a very long time. The vast Sahara Desert in the north, very few good harbors for explorers to land, and steeply rising plateaus kept the outsiders at bay. Moreover, rivers forming high waterfalls prevented travel by rivers. Hot humid climate, dense forests, fear of wild animals and diseases discouraged explorers. The continent of Africa lies between latitudes 37° north and 35° south, extending almost equally on both sides of the equator. Its longitudes extend from 17° west to 15° east, and the prime meridian passes along the western side of Africa. Africa is the only continent occupying a part of all four hemispheres. Africa is surrounded by the Mediterranean Sea in the north, the Atlantic Ocean in the west, and the Indian Ocean in the east. It is separated from Europe by the Strait of Gibraltar, that is, between Atlantic Ocean and the Mediterranean Sea, and from the Arabian Peninsula by the Red Sea. Africa is attached to Asia by a small Sinai Peninsula, and the Suez Canal is what separates the two continents. The coastline of Africa is very smooth, with no deep indentations and few well-defined peninsulas. The coastline is nearly regular everywhere. There are 53 countries in Africa. Around 4,000 years ago, a canal was dug between the Nile and the Red Sea by an Egyptian pharaoh. Frequently misused, this canal was built and rebuilt several times, but the interest in the canal, which shortened the distance between Europe and Asia, never ceased. In 1854, after permission to build a canal was granted to a French diplomat, Ferdinand de Lesseps, by Egypt's viceroy, construction began in 1859. This 162-kilometer long canal took 10 long years to complete. Formally opened in 1869, the Suez Canal stretched across the Isthmus of Suez, separating Asia from Africa and shortening the route from Europe to Asia by more than 10,000 kilometers. The canal, 150 meters wide and 14 meters deep, has been enlarged several times to handle more traffic. Today, Suez Canal is one of the world's busiest shipping lanes. Over 60 ships pass the waters each day and more than 20,000 ships in a year. At the speed of 9 kilometers per hour, the journey takes 10 to 12 hours. Despite its great size, Africa does not have a great variety of physical features. Most of Africa is a plateau made of old hard rock. The elevation, higher in the south, gradually decreases towards the north in a series of steps. Africa does not have many mountains. Atlas Range, which lies in the northwest coast, is a continuation of the mountains of southern Europe. The Drakensberg Mountain along the east coast are not true mountains. They are the tilted up edge of the plateau, comprising most of Africa. Located in East Africa, Mount Kilimanjaro is an extinct volcano, that is, a volcano that is dead or finished erupting. At 5,895 meters, it is the highest peak of Africa. Africa has very little low-lying areas, mainly found along the western and northern coasts. The basin of River Congo and Lake Chad are also low-lying. The Great Rift Valley is one of the most unusual landforms of Africa. With steep sides, it is formed when the land between two faults sinks, forming a valley. Stretching about 6,440 kilometers, the Great Rift Valley begins from Mozambique in the south and ends in the valley of River Jordan in Syria. Lying on the plateau between the two branches of the Rift Valley is the largest lake, Lake Victoria. It lies at the equator. Africa is cut through by four mighty rivers. With 6,400 kilometers in length, the Nile is the longest river in the world. It emerges from Lake Victoria, flows northward through the Sahara Desert, and empties into the Mediterranean Sea. Though it mainly flows through the Sahara Desert, it has enough water because its source lies in the equatorial region, which gets plenty of rainfall. The banks of River Nile are very fertile, and through centuries, millions of inhabitants have lived here and used its water to irrigate crops, making it one of the most densely populated areas in the world. The Nile forms the second largest delta in the world. River Congo, the second longest river of Africa, with its numerous tributaries, forms one of the largest river systems in the world. It flows across Middle Africa through the huge equatorial forest and drains into the Atlantic Ocean. Thick vegetation prevents construction of roads or railways, and so River Congo and its tributaries form a good means of transportation. The Niger, the third longest river of Africa, emerges in the highland in West Coast and empties into Atlantic Ocean. It does not have much water as it rises and flows through dry areas. River Zambezi, the fourth longest river, is the major river in southern Africa. It rises in Central Africa, flows southeastwards and empties into the Indian Ocean. When it reaches Victoria Falls, it plummets 108 meters, creating much noise and spray, and hence is called the smoke that thunders. Its numerous rapids and waterfalls make only some parts of the river navigable. Rivers Orange and Limpopo are two other significant rivers of Africa. All of Africa's rivers contain impassable rapids, making it only partly open to boat traffic. Hence, Africa's mineral and agricultural resources cannot be readily shipped to its city.